And that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023. You do that.
Hey, I mean, that was a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back.
It's time for the old time happy hour. So pick up your step and smile wide.
Smile wide, everybody. Hello. It is happy hour here on OutDrank The Coverage. I am Terry Bennett. That is intern Noe, the pro, the new wrestler that'll be debuting here soon on WWE's across all PS5s. I'm going to buy that. I haven't bought that game in years. I'm going to buy that game just so I can run out intern Noe, the pro. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I think you can tell I'm doing pretty well. I actually got asked. This made me feel good. This made all the years and money that I spent on these helmets. And again, thanks to my fiance for the surprise of I needed like 7 to go, and she surprised me with them before the draft. But I had somebody email the show and asked. I saw the picture. I saw the picture and I saw some of the draft, but can you show the helmets one more time? Because I explained to them how we do this. We set the table. You saw a little bit of the magic. I have a box that's marked for high school stuff and then the pro one. And so anyway, point is I backed the camera out a little bit. That way you could kind of get a look at, I call this porn. Y'all call it whatever you want.
You built quite a collection.
I have every team now in the NFL. I have and also have the Oilers. And then of course I have many different variations. I have all the Cowboy variations. I have almost all the NFC East. Well, actually, I will when we finish up the top 5, I will complete every NFC East helmets throughout their history.
And you're referring to the Look Back Season 2, the Rivals.
Yes, we did our 70s and got big numbers on that. I kind of thought that one might. I share that in a lot of different NFL pages. And that was the one that got more talk back in some of those pages, the biggest one. Well, what about Washington? And you have to explain, well, they're in the top 5. They get their own show. But people they were really enjoying just us kind of talking about some of those rivalries that people kind of forget about.
Well, you remember our private discussion about this honorable mention 70s, and I kept trying to bring up Washington. And you're like, no, we have a different show just for that. So, yeah, I mean, that'll definitely be a good show because of just how it started, how Washington was trying to block Dallas from even entering the league. So that'll be definitely a good look back. That'll probably come out maybe June-ish.
Let's see. That'll.
I think.
Yeah, because we're doing 2 in May. That's right, we're doing 2 in May.
Yeah.
It'll be.
Oh, yeah, get to work on that. Okay.
What now?
I have to get to work on that.
Oh yeah, me too. Sorry if it's a little bit. I'm trying to get this. Okay, if y'all heard that, sorry. We had some weird things happening in the draft. It wasn't anything to do with our equipment. It turned out to be it was just the browser was having some issues, and that's the one negative about when you record live. like this through a browser. You're not really in control of some of the things like that. But we didn't know at the time, so I was messing with all the sounds. So now I'm having to kind of get them back to where they're supposed to be. So if I'm moving around or if some of us are really low tonight or something like that, I do apologize. We're just trying to get our sound system back the way we had it. But anyway,
what are you drinking?
I was about to say, how we already did the how you doing. I was about to say, what do you do? Or what are you drinking? And then I forgot. I started a little earlier. I'm drinking what I always drink. Good Night Loving. This has become my favorite vodka. In fact, I had some Tito's. What was it? A couple weeks ago. I can't remember what we were doing, and I had some Tito. Oh, they were testing, or they had not test. They had the person set up at the liquor store doing the stuff, and it was whatever the I think it was a mojito or something, and they were testing it with Tito, or topping it with Tito's, and I didn't like the taste anymore. It tastes different. Good Night Loving has that pure, literally, like I actually go, I don't mind drinking this. And that's hard for me now, because I've always said I never drink alcohol for taste. I drink alcohol for results.
Yeah.
And I actually like this one.
So today, in honor of L4 Media getting to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, congratulations to us and everybody that's involved with L4. That's a pretty good accomplishment. We're on the right path. So,
especially how quick it started this off season, and sorry, we'll get to what you're drinking, but I want to make sure I get this point in. We had a good first year with views, like we had 300,000 views. We got accepted into the ad program in YouTube a lot quicker than I thought we would, and I'm the one that knows more about it just because I watch so much YouTube and stuff, so I knew the process. We were ahead of that. But you and I were talking in January. The one negative is we don't have people, subscribing. People were coming to our show as long as they found our link. They weren't waking up going, hey, boom, they've got a video. I want to check it out. Well, it started in January, and we've started finally catching with where we're getting a ton of subs a day. I mean, we've doubled it in a month, and then almost doubled that in like 2 weeks. And so maybe we're finally getting to the algorithm and all that. But anyway, I appreciate everybody that is listening, that is watching, that still follows us just from high school football, or if you're finding us through all the Facebook pages and all that, welcome. This is what we do every other Monday. We talk a little sports. This one's a little bit more specific because we do have the draft. But before we get that, now let's finish. Noe, what are you drinking?
I'm doing scotch today. I'm doing Glenmorangie 18 year. I just want to do something special because of special accomplishment. I feel as we're on our way to our ultimate goal, we should celebrate the many accomplishments that L4 Media, OutDrank, Sideline to Sideline, all the different shows on this channel do. And we should just celebrate. And I wanted to get something that was a little bit pricier and something I don't really drink that often.
Yeah.
And so cheers, man.
Oh, you don't think that we're getting a raise with this, right? You didn't just like pay off stop paying your house to buy the $400 bottle, did you?
No. This is so me. I'm not the most materialistic person, but I do like whiskey. So anytime,
I mean, look at your whole scene behind you compared to you to me. Yeah.
The one thing I really like, there's few things I really do like. I like whiskey, and that's one of them. So anytime,
and long-legged blondes.
Yes. Anytime my birthday or Christmas comes around, some people, when they do gifts, I'm not a big gift person, but I will accept some whiskey. So people just I have a collection. Half of it I bought, half of it I didn't. And this is one I bought. I got as a gift, and I just had it stored in the back of my liquor cabinet. And so usually when I've guests over or special occasion, I'll bring it out.
Oh, that's why you always bring it out when I'm there and there's a fireplace going. And you don't even have a fireplace. How do you do that?
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. All right. So what we're going to be doing tonight is mainly focusing on the draft. We had the live draft show Thursday or Friday. No, Thursday. Oh, wait. Thursday. Sorry. Man, our Fridays and Thursdays of the last few weeks have just been so we usually record our stuff on Fridays, and so just that 1 day difference just thrown me for a loop. But anyway, again, we appreciate it. We had a great, 12,000 people tuned in, had some questions, had some thoughts, and all that. I appreciate that. But then after that, you went about your business, I went about mine. We both watched or kept up with the draft the rest of the time, and so I wanted to get what your view was on things. And we'll talk, the Cowboys, of course. We'll talk, probably touch every team. I don't know if we'll go in depth on every team, but I will lead with, as we said that night, this will be 200 years from now or 2,000 years from now when they uncover the tapes of the NFL. And they pull out this one tape. It's going to be a young man who could have been an intern or might have been a pro. But when Atlanta announced their draft, knowing with the very, very eloquent quote of, "What the fuck, Falcons?" And the thing that made me laugh about that before is I don't think I've ever heard you say "what the fuck" actually say it. And you literally you couldn't help yourself. That is still just the absolute weird part of the draft.
Yeah, and everything. The funny thing about this draft was everything was kind of going as we expected up until the Falcon pick. So you and I were thinking, okay, a defensive player is going to come off the board, surely.
Yep. Dallas Turner, they need a pass rush. He is good enough that, I mean, honestly, if they draft Dallas Turner, I might be calling them a dark horse Super Bowl team this year.
Yeah,
that's how everything else is built. They're just needing that one or two things.
Yeah, and we talked about the Falcons. They got Kirk Cousins. He has a $180 million contract, over $100 million guaranteed. They got two really good running backs. They got a couple of receivers in the offseason to go along with the young talent they have on offense in general. Good offensive line. They needed some defensive help.
Yep.
They got a lot of free agents last year, but it just didn't really pan out. They ended up being 7-10 again. A lot of the blame was on Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
And now he's a Steelers offensive coordinator, which with the way they drafted, I kind of like what they did, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, going back to the Falcons, they need pass rush help. They could, they can improve their secondary, or they get a pass rush. And the value at number 8 is pass rush. And Dallas Turner was right there. He was, for those college football fans listening, he was teammates with Will Anderson at the University of Alabama a couple of years ago. They were a dynamic duo.
I don't think he's as good as Anderson, but I think he's pretty darn good.
And I think a lot of experts will say the same thing. He is definitely worth that number 8 pick. He's going to he would have vastly improved that team.
Yes.
As a Vikings coach, Kevin O'Connell, one of the best memes of the weekend. He saw how you watched that meme. You saw how excited he was when Minnesota ended up getting him. So the value was there at number 8, and they decided to go with their, as GM Terry Fontenot said, can't miss once in a generation quarterback in Michael Penix, 24 years old.
I forgot to pull the video. No, he's son of a gun.
Oh yeah, I did.
Failed.
Yeah,
I failed.
So outside of the Kevin O'Connell
I'll try to find it.
GIF, where he's just like very excited about Dallas Turner. The main one is the owner of the Falcons, Arthur Blank, having a conversation with GM Terry Fontenot about the Michael Penix pick. And you could clearly see that Blank had a different view on things than Fontenot did. Seemed to be a lack of communication between them on who they were going to go with that 8th pick. It reminded you and I of Draft Day, the movie that came out 10 years ago with Kevin Costner, and how the GM reacted to when Costner picked Vontae Mack with the number 1 overall pick. I think that was his name, the Chadwick Boseman's character name.
Yeah, Vontae Mack.
Yeah, Vontae Mack, number 1 overall pick, a linebacker, when they wanted to go for a franchise quarterback with the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Hang on. I'm looking. Yep, here we go. Hang on, let me put it at current time. Oh, I don't have to do that. Never mind. Hey, all I got to do is share. I forgot. So again, as you said, the thing going around was Arthur Blank and them, him looking like maybe he's dressing down or at least asking for an explanation from the GM. The GM looks like he's kind of, hum. And again, we don't know what the actual thing is, but immediately, because this is the nerds that Noah and I are, we literally both say draft day like at the exact same time as we're sharing the link. And we're talking about this part right here, which is one of my favorite parts.
Sonny, you are a dead man.
Mr. Molina, look at me. Look at me. Just give him a minute. He knows what he's doing.
Tom, it's Sonny.
Jesus, Marion, what?
Anyway, I mean, it's quick, but if you know the show, the movie, it's great. But it's the same thing. He's Frank Langella is playing the new. He's basically playing like Jerry Jones, to be honest with you, or maybe a little bit of Al Davis. But he's mad because he thought they were going to draft the star quarterback and all that. This is a little different. They didn't know they were going to draft the star quarterback. But either way, I don't know what was being said right there. It might not be what that is. I don't know. I mean, it seems like Atlanta was pretty, like, as a group, wanted this move.
Yeah, I mean, ever since they saw his pro day, they sent scouts out. It seemed like from day one, the Falcons really wanted Penix. I guess they were thinking he might get drafted earlier, so they just assumed they would get Dallas Turner, and everybody assumed they were going to get Dallas Turner. But not for you and I, we didn't think it was because of Penix. We just thought value. That's value and need right there. And they went a different way. 6 quarterbacks ended up getting drafted in the first round, which shocked me. Go ahead.
This is going to sound really crazy. And maybe I'm in the afterglow, like, after you and I watch the Cowboys, win a game 62-3, and we pretend like we don't really love it because we know how the season's going, but we still get a little giggle out of it. I don't know. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I know you have something you want to say about the draft related to the Cowboys.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Sorry. My point was, I was making a joke. But my point was, I kind of feel like every quarterback is going to at least be a solid pro. I don't think of the 6. I don't think there's a total bust in the bunch. I don't know if there's a big high ceiling as much as, I know some people think Caleb Williams is the greatest, quarterback prospect ever. But hey, we were literally saying that about Lawrence 4 years ago. And I remember you and I having that same conversation when watching him at Clemson. And we're like, yeah, he's really good, but really best ever. But, other than Caleb Williams, I don't know if they have a real high ceiling, but I don't think they have a real low floor. I think there's a lot of really solid starters in this group.
Well, I'll make my point after I make this point. Okay. Chicago Bears, number 1 overall pick. They drafted Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC, 2022 Heisman Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. I would say I don't think there's ever been a quarterback that's been drafted at this position, just in the first round, not even number 1 overall, that's ever gone into a situation this good. Now, let me tell you their starting offense, just this skill position. I really think they've done a good job on the offensive line over the last couple of years, but think about this. Running back, DeAndre Swift. Backup running back, Khalil Herbert. In the NFL, you have to have 2 solid to good running backs. Now.
And both of those, boy, I would love to be the lead back for Dallas this year.
and their future star in Roschon Johnson. So
I would love him to be the back. In fact, you remember last year, I was wanting them to grab him early and have him because I'm like, dude, he's not going to be as good as Priest Holmes, but he's going to have that Priest Holmes career where his college wasn't as good simply because of who was ahead of him. And for Priest Holmes, it was Ricky Williams that last year. And you just, as great as Priest was, Ricky Williams was starting to mature and become the guy that, Ricky Williams became. But yeah, man, that's all 3 of those right there are maybe the best running back group in the league.
And for Roschon Johnson, it was Bijan Robinson who went to the Falcons last year. So wide receiver, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, who they picked number 9 overall in this year's draft.
Who you now can work as a 4th and slot with no pressure.
2 tight ends, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett.
I love Cole Kmet. Very underrated fantasy guy, by the way. Very underrated.
That is a very strong offensive unit. I don't think any quarterback's gone into a situation like this. This team finished 7-10 last year. They vastly improved since then. But I really like the outlook for this team. They have to be division favorites or just playoff favorites at the very least.
And that's why I told you I felt that. I mean, this might be one of those rare situations that keeping Fields would have worked, trading Fields would have worked, and picking Caleb Williams. I don't think there's, I feel bad for Justin Fields because it's just a situation where any other time you entrenched yourself with the way that they finished the season last year. But so I think the Bears win either way. They just happen to get Caleb Williams, and you're going to see them go down the field more. I think easily they could win that division because I still think you got to see it again from Detroit. The hardest part's doing it the second time. Every year we have one or two teams that surprise, win a playoff game, and everybody's like, oh my God. Let's remember, the Jaguars were 7 minutes away from a Super Bowl that they probably would have won. So, I mean,
2017 season, yeah.
Yes. So, you see these teams pop up and then fall right back. So we don't know if Detroit's going to fall back. We don't know about Minnesota at quarterback. What if Darnold does away from the pressure? Just, he has a pretty good wide receiver core still. In fact, you could say, as long as they keep Jefferson with Addison and the way he played, I mean, Minnesota's still potent. I mean, all of a sudden, the NFC North is the toughest division.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Minnesota starting lineup. They got Aaron Jones, who they got from the Packers, starting running back.
You're going to get 13 really good games from him, 2 that aren't good, and then he's going to be hurt for a couple games. But that's perfectly fine because they signed him to a really good deal.
Yeah, they have Jefferson and Jordan Addison, a receiver, two of the best right now in football. TJ Hawkinson at tight end. So that'll be a good security blanket for JJ McCarthy should he ever play this season. But yeah, I really like what they've done.
That's a good point. I totally forgot about that. Do you start him?
McCarthy, I think he's in a good position where he can actually sit and watch a pro going into 6 seasons and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but listen to what we just said. I mean, they're in a really competitive division. I mean, there really isn't. Let's be honest. NFC North, at least on paper, there's not a weakness in the teams outside of Minnesota quarterback. So how long do you go in that division where you just say, screw it? If we think he's our future, well, now he's our present.
I kind of want to see Darnold. It depends on what happens in training camp, but I kind of, if it was me, all things considered, I want to go with a veteran just to start the season, because I'm not sure how good that offensive line is for the Vikings, and I wouldn't want to throw McCarthy.
Oh yeah, that's a real good point right there because they struggled late. In fact, you want to talk about how good Cousins was and wasn't. If the line blocked, he was usually pretty good. If the line struggled, and you kind of started seeing that even before he got hurt.
Yeah, so I would just throw a more cost-efficient veteran out there and let him go through that. And if the line's good, great. And if not, then go. I really like Aaron Jones there. I think he'll be a good, just like with Hawkinson, he'll be a good just chunk it check it down type player just in case.
Yeah, I really thought Dallas was going to make a play for him because of the Mike McCarthy connection, and Aaron Jones had talked about his appreciation and just what he thought of Mike McCarthy and everything. Yeah. I like Aaron Jones. Now, I'll go back to though. You have a possible volatile wide receiver situation. You can't really waste a year. So again, I go back to if you're going to be 5-5, I know you're right about the offensive line, but McCarthy can also move around. It's not like he's a statue. You might have to throw him out there to keep Jefferson happy and keep at least Jefferson entertained to understand that it might not be this year, but we're building the right way so that by next year we're back contending.
Training camp is going to be very telling. That'll be a team you and I are going to be paying a lot of attention to just to see how McCarthy adjusts to NFL life.
Because I'm still not sold on him, but also I just think that the Vikings are one of those teams. And look, I think we're finally with the Belichick and Brady era over. I think we're finally seeing how cap football was supposed to work, where honestly you look at every team and there's only one or two teams that you go, okay, they have no chance. Like, even if everything works right for them, they're still, and honestly, I don't even know if there's even one of those now. I think everybody might have if everything goes right, they can make a playoff run. And that's what cap football is always supposed to be about. Eventually, the NFL would love if 90% of the teams were 9-8 and 8-9. And then there you have the two that go high and the two that go low. That always keeps that mean exactly where they want it. And we're starting to see that now. And that's what's so fun about these drafts, because it used to be, hey, you draft a starter in the first, possible starter in the second, special teamer in the third. Let's start working on projects fourth through on. Well, now, like Dallas this year, let's move over to Dallas's draft. Dallas this year basically almost has to hit on every pick to fill the holes that they have left, because they now believe in this theory of we don't do any free agent things.
Yeah, Dallas got rid of a lot of players and coaches this past season, and they had to kind of start from scratch. They have a nucleus. They had Dak. They have CeeDee Lamb at receiver, but they had no running back. They ended up getting, they still had Rico Dowdle from last season. They ended up signing Royce Freeman. And then today they ended up signing Ezekiel Elliott. And that goes back to my fun little jingle of Rico, Royce, and Zeke. Oh my. And you just say it over and over again until you feel that they can get 2,000 yards rushing in one season.
And that's the goal, not by one guy, but you as a team, you want to hit 2,000. If you're what Dallas wants to do. Go ahead.
I like what they did along the offensive line. I think
100% agree.
Cooper Beebe. I mean, Tyler Guyton's number one, the first round pick. He's big and long arms, kind of a project, a little bit raw. He came from Oklahoma. I think he played right tackle. He's projected right now to be the left tackle, but anything can change. Cooper Beebe was a All-American guard at Kansas
and played every position on the line.
So he could play guard or center. Right now, the Cowboys have Brock Hoffman. He was a guy the Browns drafted 2 years ago out of Virginia Tech. Dallas acquired him from the Browns. He's been with us for a year, and he could slot in right now as a starting center, or they put Cooper Beebe there. I'm not sure, but I do like them getting two offensive linemen, two that could start for us easily, along with Tyler Smith at left guard. It kind of prolongs the inevitable move for Tyler Smith to left tackle. If that even ever happens, they might just want to keep him at guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Guyton pick is to say we want to keep him at guard.
Yeah.
I think the Cooper Beebe pick is right now we're going to work him center. But the idea, you got to remember, Zach Martin's in the last year of his deal next year.
Yeah.
Will Dallas want to, you got to start making those tough decisions right there. You're going to have, if you want to be a better team, you might have to have a couple of your future Hall of Famers playing for other teams to close out their career. And they still play very well, but you've got youth and all that. But that's the great thing about it. You get Cooper Beebe, you work him at center, and then let's say next year there's not really any good centers on the market. Well, then you go, okay, well, we can re-sign Martin, and we'll keep Cooper. That's the thing that I like what Dallas is doing. They're giving themselves multiple options with the same guys, and not desperate options, but viable options. And we could talk about who they want, wide receiver, at quarterback, at running back. And we can talk about, you don't always have to draft first-round offensive linemen, but I'm just going to say Dallas drafting first-round offensive linemen, I 1,000% trust. They have not, I can't even remember the last true offensive line bust that I can think of would would be probably, I don't even know, dude.
Yeah, no one really comes to mind. They usually have hit, especially in the last 15 years.
I know a couple of the offensive linemen that Bill Parcells drafted sucked. And that's why I always contend that I understood why Jerry Jones was like, I'm not ever giving up control, because he gave it up to a football genius. But if you go look at what Bill Parcells did draft-wise for Dallas, it really wasn't that good. But anyway, I'm just saying Dallas just seems to draft offensive linemen well, especially in the last 10 years or 14 years, excuse me.
Yeah, and to your point, Tyron Smith, he left the Cowboys, future Hall of Fame left tackle. He went to the Jets for 1 year. The Jets, in turn, actually drafted his replacement for 2025. So that's definitely going to be a 1 year deal for Tyron Smith. But I could definitely see Zach Martin not returning after this season. They'll be sad. He's been a great left guard for the Cowboys going into year 11, but yeah, he's starting to get some injury issues, and he's getting up there in age, and he does still command and deserve a high salary. I still think he's one of the greatest guards that's ever played in this game. Maybe even the greatest right guard has ever played. So every year, Cowboys are going to keep doing this, just keep replacing. You brought up a good theory, and then that the Cowboys kind of was doing years ago, but they just never put a name to it, where you just keep 4 or 5 cornerstone players, give them all the money, and then just roster churn the rest of the positions.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to, there is no perfect way. If there was, everybody, it would be like baseball. Everybody tries to do the exact same thing because there's percentages. There's not like that in football. There's still enough. And I just hope it always stays this way. And I know people will say, well, offenses in the NFL are all the same. Yeah, but what we're talking about now, it's not about the field. It's about how you roster build. That's where football championships are won nowadays. Not with coaching. I mean, coaching's big. All that scheme and all that, that's great. But it's how you build your roster from year to year.
And you brought up the copying part, and that's kind of relates to the point the one thing I took from this draft was the NFL is a copycat league.
Yes.
You look at the team that won the Super Bowl or who lost in the Super Bowl, you see their roster makeup, and then you go into the next year's draft trying to copy that.
Exactly.
This year, to me, was a little bit different. Last season, in general, defense dominated. I don't think that's happened in a while in the NFL.
Yeah, for the season, yeah. Now, again, we have to remember part of that might be because so many starting quarterbacks were hurt last year, but it seemed like it was happening even before all that happened.
Yeah, or in Patrick Mahomes' case, he just didn't have the star talent at receiver to be able to do his magic that he used to do with Tyreek Hill.
But I want to point out, you and I, the year before, we kept telling people that were listening at that time, still weren't 100% video, that safeties are starting to play back more. Quarterbacks are afraid to turn the ball over, so we're going to see a lot of dink and dunk, and that's exactly what happened last year as defenses just kept everything in front of them. And then you get the occasional sack or you get the occasional turnover, and that's it's really weird. We're in 2024, we're in a very conservative part of the NFL as far as schemes and things like that.
I think we're at the tail end of that. I think we're going to start seeing a shift going a different direction. Not sure where that direction is going to be, but I think we're at the point where now it's happened for a few years, and I think now we're at the point where I think something's going to shift.
We need back-to-back high-scoring Super Bowls. We had one, Philadelphia and the Chiefs gave us a really high scoring, but then last year, it was high scoring. Like we need back-to-back, like 44 versus 41. And then you get teams going, okay, we got to be aggressive again. Let's flow there. Because you're 100% right. They're gonna mimic what they see have success a couple times, a couple of years in a row.
This draft had a record 23 offensive players picked in the first round.
Yep.
And that typically doesn't happen because a lot of the premier positions outside of quarterback are going to be defensive tackle, edge rusher. So usually it's a good mix of defense and offense. But this year people are trying to get a franchise quarterback. That's why there were 6 quarterbacks listed as first-round material. I think you and I disagree with that. I don't think there was 6 actual quarterbacks that should have been won in the first round, but the teams are desperate for a franchise quarterback.
Okay, so let's now talk about that because and we'll go back to Dallas again. We're just now getting started. You say that, but again, I think all 6 quarterbacks, at least where they landed, have a good chance to all succeed. Like within a couple years, this will be the newest. Wow, that class, all of them hit. I don't really see a lot of I don't see quarterback as much as I don't trust the JJ McCarthy. I think that's because, and it's not. It's my fault for just assuming like he didn't have a big arm. because of the style that Harbaugh plays. And then I started looking at tape. I'm like, he makes all the throws. I mean, we talked about that during the draft. You just want a quarterback that makes all the throws.
He was a victim of a team that was so good at what they did that
Detroit
he wasn't.
Aikman.
Yeah, he wasn't required to
It's a really
throw
good
a
point.
lot. Yeah, so I mean, I remember one game Michigan ran the ball the entire second half in a close game. I think it was against Penn State, and they I think it was. I remember Harbaugh being suspended for this game, and yeah, they just ran the rest of the second half because they didn't have to throw the ball. And I think I don't know if McCarthy was hurt in that game, but I just remember them not having to run on the road against the primetime opponent without Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning. So like that team was so well built, they could just run the ball, which is a Harbaugh staple. And I think you're going to see some vast improvements with the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert's going to really like. I think he's going to like year one. I really do. And I'm kind of bully on the Chargers this year. One, I know Harbaugh loves traditional uniforms, so they're going to look amazing. The Chargers already looked amazing. Think about because 2011 when he went to the 49ers, he went back to the original look.
But I mean, I think, and I've said this before, I think overall the Chargers have the best looking football. And the main reason I think they have the best looking football is they haven't had a ton of changes through their history, but they have put all of them into one package this year. And that's the thing you and I were talking about during the draft when we were talking about all the helmets and stuff. If the Giants either every 20 years change or just have both of your styles in every season, give us a couple games in the throwbacks, a couple games in the current and all that. And so I think the Chargers do it to where I don't even know if anybody can mess with that. Like theirs is perfect. You get every great look. And then even looks that weren't the best, but still kind of look cool now because you only see it once every, 19 games.
I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and I kind of like their starters. I'm not sure about the depth, but I like their starters. Having Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins at running back, and then you got the only problem I would say is receiver. They did draft a Georgia guy, Ladd McConkey. Yeah. I think he'll be a solid slot guy. Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst and Donald Parham are going to be their tight ends. I'm not sure which one of those is going to be the primary starter, maybe Dissly. But I like their linemen. Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Corey Leslie, and then Joe Alt at right tackle, the guy they drafted at number 5 overall, 6'8", behemoth of a tackle from Notre Dame. His dad, John Alt, as you know, played for the Chiefs in the 80s and 90s, really solid lineman. So I like what they did in year one. I still think they're missing pieces, like at receiver. But if they can run the ball and they have 4 really good linemen, they could control the line of scrimmage, and they have Justin Herbert with a big arm. I could see them actually making some noise this season in a competitive AFC West.
Okay, so let me ask you that question. Okay. Is what Harbaugh, at least we think, how he's going to be, just going by what he did at Michigan and what he did at Stanford and what he did at San Diego State and what he did at, for San Francisco, is his style of football able to succeed now?
I still think it is if he has the right talent. He's kind of starting to build it. He has the line. He has the running backs. He has a really good franchise quarterback. He has a good enough defense. They're a little bit on the old side, so he might be adjusting that in the next couple of years. But running game, it works if you have the talent. You can controlling the clock, putting the other team's offense on the bench, taking them out of their rhythm is proven to work in the NFL consistently since
Still?
It worked for trying to think of a more recent.
San Francisco's kind of like that. You're not wrong on that.
2019 San Francisco is a really good example. I know currently they're sort of like that, but they're more explosive than the 2019 team was. Just think about that NFC title game against Green Bay. I think
257 yards on the ground for Kaepernick. What, 257?
No, it was this is the one with Garoppolo, 2019. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is the one where he threw maybe 8 passes. This is 5 years ago. He threw 8 passes the entire game. They were just running, gashing the Packers. Raheem Mostert was, had a great game. Throw a pass over the middle to Kittle. So it still works to this day. It's just one of those things. But you have to have the talent to do it. You can be a run-heavy offense, but if you don't have the talent, like the Steelers didn't really have as good of a team last year as I'm thinking they're going to be this year.
Like Dallas last year, trying to run the ball like they always had in the last 10 years and not really being able to. And, again, that's where you can knock Dak for the playoff stuff. But I think last year, Dak, I think he ascended to that next level. Now let's see if the team can too. But I'm saying Dak is basically where 2014 Romo is.
He's running up for the MVP last season.
And it just felt like the game, and I know he struggled in the Green Bay game. I still feel in my soul of souls that was a moment where the offense puckered because when they saw how easily Green Bay went down the field, they realized, oh, crap, we're in a shootout now. And I don't think Dallas I don't think they ever thought they would be. That's on them too. I'm not saying that makes it better, but I just know I've seen Dak play every Dallas Cowboy game, and the throws he was making last year is just on a different level. And it just reminds me so much of 2013 going into 2014 Romo, where as long as you don't force him to throw it 40 times a game and let him give you his best 25 to 30 throws, he's going to have a pretty special season.
And 2014 Dallas is a good example of what we were just talking about because they had gotten the right amount of good linemen. That season they drafted Zach Martin instead of who was Johnny Manziel. He was the one people kept joking the Cowboys were going to get in the first round, but they ended up getting Zach Martin, kind of solidifying the starting 5 offensive line. So they had the talent. They had DeMarco Murray in the final year of his contract. So, AK, he's going to try his hardest to get paid.
And he'd already had his breakthrough, really his true breakthrough year the year before.
Yes.
That's a what if, dude. And I'm not, again, go get your money, but that's a what if they'd have just found a way to keep him on that team. Again, going into, you don't necessarily maybe have to draft Zeke, and you have Jalen Ramsey that year. Yeah. And I love Zeke. And to be honest with you, there's part of me that's glad that Zeke's back, and there's that. I have an optimistic view of things. Like I always, for some reason, hope that like the third receiver gets 1,000 yards, just weird things like that. I always hope the unknown Ranger, pulls an Adolis Garcia and has the holy crap career out of nowhere. Yeah. And maybe that'll happen this year at running back with, Rico. That'd be cool. That would be cool. I mean, that'd be fun.
Or Deuce Vaughn being a great third option,
Yeah, or Deuce Vaughn, or again, I'm sorry, I meant to finish. Zeke having that one more year, the line's better, and I will go. And I know I'm supposed to be playing the part of the hateful fan, and I will at certain times. But when we're doing these happy hours, it's more just kind of us. I am so rooting for Zeke to have a bounce back year. Okay, can I do my Cowboy prediction now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. My prediction is they're going to shock us, and Zeke's going to have 1,200 yards, and Dallas is going to struggle, though, at times, just simply because the defense is kind of converting to a different style. Zimmer's way more conservative. You're not going to lead the league in sacks and turnovers, but you're also going to be better in other parts. It's that give and take on that kind of stuff. But they're going to struggle. I think the curse of the NFC East back-to-back is real. I think Dallas will finish 11-6, maybe 10-7. All right. I think Zeke will have a really good, solid year, 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. But everything else in the running game is going to kind of struggle. I think Dak will have a great year. Micah Parsons kind of steps up. And they're going to get that kind of like they did 2 years ago where they have to go on the road and play Tampa or Atlanta, somebody that's in the South that's still just not quite really good. They're solid, though. They're going to win that game. And then something's going to happen where they get through the second round. I don't know if they beat anybody straight up or maybe they get lucky and, Brock Purdy gets hurt. I'm not trying to wish that, but you know what I mean? Something like that happens, or Minnesota upsets somebody and you get anyway. They're going to get to the title game, NFC. They're going to lose because the ground game goes 20 for 40 yards. and we're going to get next year whoever the best running back is. He's getting picked in the first round, and we're going to do this Zeke Elliott dance where we do that again with this guy, where we'll somehow regress back and not quite make it. And then you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So it would be fun if that happened because we'd finally make an NFC title game, but it would also suck because you could see that circular, because that's the biggest problem with Jerry Jones. He cannot stay with a principle, idea, philosophy, framework and see that through. He has to always be changing. In
your theory, that means Mike McCarthy and Dak will be here for the long haul.
And I think that's what Jerry Jones wants. I think Jerry Jones is going to look for any if you noticed again, he softened his whole thing with Dak. And hey, Dak, I see Dak as a quarterback, but he also tempered that with, but that means we have to make choices at other positions. Again, two ways to look at it. He's going with the idea of signing 4 core guys and then everybody else churn, or he's telling Dak through the press, come on, dude, take less, help us out. You've already made $100 million. Take less. And so if that works, and if Dak were to take a really true hometown discount, well, then it could be fun because then you've got more salary cap. But I think it's going to be the world where Jerry either is going 4 core guys and then we're going to churn everybody else. And then the thing with that, though, is you have to be perfect with your draft every year.
Which, a present example, Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
They've been pretty good with their drafts over the years. A lot of people talk about that. They've had late picks every year, and they somehow just keep hitting on these guys. They just plug on the defense. Last year, another good example of a team that was defensive dominant. Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator, excellent job with a bunch of young players, some 5 or 6 years in, but mostly like 1 to 2 year guys.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to redo it again next season. Now, I think they'll be better on offense, but that's just another team that consistently gets it right, and just like the Ravens.
Well,
they're the team everyone gets annoyed about because they find the one guy that everybody wants, but
exactly.
no one, but everybody just doesn't even think of drafting, and then they draft him like, oh, he's going to be a starter for them.
And that shows you right there, though. Ozzie Newsome created this culture, and even though he stepped away, it is such a good culture, and the decisions on who should run the team after him have been so good that they still are doing that. He's been he hasn't been running that 5 years now?
Yeah, I'm trying to look. So Eric DaCosta is the current Ravens GM. He has been their GM since 2019.
Maybe so 5 years ago.
Yeah, so he's been
So again, though, their drafts, you wouldn't know the difference. If you just said, oh, no, Newsome just retired last year, you'd look at the drafts and go, oh, yeah, you're right. But the Ravens have done really good at that. Now, you can also make the case, though, that they bite themselves and they don't have that 1 or 2 true superstars outside of Lamar, to put them over the top in those big games when you need those big players to step up and make big plays.
You would think that they've been working on addressing that. I think they've actually done a pretty solid job of doing that. They got that.
So you just think it's a matter of time for them?
It's a matter of time.
As long as everybody stays healthy, all that good stuff.
Okay, remember, they were knocking Lamar Jackson for not getting to an AFC title game. They got to an AFC title game. They hosted it. Now, they didn't perform well at home against the Chiefs, but they addressed it in the offseason through free agency with Derrick Henry. Got the 2-year deal. They drafted Zay Flowers last season. He's been a great receiver. They got another solid receiver, Rashad Bateman. Nelson Aguilar, who had a bunch of not fumbling, but drop pass issues.
But he came up clutch in the playoffs and such, dude.
And he's gotten way better. And then they drafted Drake May, the quarterback that went to the Patriots in this draft. They got his running buddy, Tez Walker,
who's really, really good.
And that's a 4th receiver. Think about the Ravens that we know since they moved from Cleveland. Well, really, even since they were in Cleveland, they've been just run heavy.
Oh, yeah.
But now they have a plethora of solid 1s and 2 receivers. And some of these 2 receivers are playing at 3 and 4 positions. So I really like them. And they have 2 really good tight ends, and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. And they drafted a guard, Roger Rosengarten, in this draft. that's a person that they're just going to plug him in. He's going to be starting because they had to get rid of some of their offensive line.
Oh, and they churn at the line because of the way they teach their style. It's not the talent, it's the mentality.
So they're going to be good. They lost Patrick Queen, which sucks for them, but they have Calvin Nolan.
Again, they do that. They churn at certain positions. They've learned that, hey, yeah, thank you for the great run. We appreciate it. Move on. Now, maybe if one of those, will they churn that if they win a Super Bowl? Because that's when it gets really hard. Because you've got to start, even teams that have won Super Bowls in the past, you're going to get like when Dallas, maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually Dallas will win a Super Bowl. And so when that year happens, you're going to get that. Stop it. We got to root.
Probably not in our lifetime. That's pretty depressing. Like, why are we even doing this show? Why are we even?
That's why I just keep putting all the helmets and I'm like doing a code. Hey, we'll like you, Vikings. Just say hi. Hey, well, whatever. Hey, we've talked to Texans, man. We're excited about them.
Yeah. We were very bully on their season last year when they made the aggressive move to get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson.
Best time I've just have a draft moment. It wasn't getting one of them. It was figuring out how to get both of them. Yep. And then also not giving up that much. Like they didn't hamstring themselves for 5 years. Now, it helped that they had so much with Cleveland, and they still have a couple more. Oh, no, this draft finished up the Cleveland trade. But it did help that they had that in their back. But still, we've seen teams fumble that away or try to be too conservative. Man, they went for it. I guess that's why I became a fan of them immediately.
Dude. And then indirectly, the team that they traded with to get that number 3 spot to get Will Anderson, the Arizona Cardinals, to me, outside of the Bears, or maybe even better than the Bears, I think they had the best draft of anybody in this class because they got all these draft picks and they kind of hit on almost all of them.
Yeah.
Highlighted by Marvin Harrison Jr., he looks just like his dad, but 4 inches taller. Great receiver from Ohio State. I think he's going to be a nice little compliment for Kyler Murray. And it seems like the franchise is going to stick with Kyler Murray. There was some doubt about that, but now they got, like, if you look at their starting lineup, this is what we do. We saw what they did in free agency, and now we see what they did in the draft. This is going to be 99% of their roster going into the season. They got Kyler Murray, James Conner, a great pass catching and running back.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. They got Michael Wilson, a very solid receiver. Greg Dortch. They got Trey McBride, who came on late last year. He's going to be one of the top 10 tight ends going into 2024.
All of a sudden, we're back into a tight end strength league when, you and I said, we talked about this 2 years ago.
Yep.
That there, we didn't understand why there was all of a sudden this lack of tight ends when it seemed like the league was finally understanding that you could literally run your passing game through a tight end. Like in basketball, you can run your offense through a great point forward. It doesn't have to always be a guard. And then all of a sudden there was this just lack of tight ends. And now it feels like, I'll put it to you this way, man. The fantasy drafts for tight ends, when that run starts, it's going to be fun because that's going to destroy a lot of draft strategies.
Oh yeah. And I can't wait. I'm just looking at the rest of their lineup, man. So them and the Patriots might be two teams that still, not 9-8, 8-9, but maybe they're 5-12, 6-11, but they have room for growth, and they're going to get better.
Yeah, Patriots feel like that. I think the Patriots will finally kind of settle down into hey, it ain't too bad if we go 3-14 this year and get another first round high pick and then start rebuilding.
This is year one under Jared Mayo. This is the first year without Bill Belichick this century, this millennium.
Do you think he coaches in the NFL again?
I think so, and I hope so. I just don't know who.
Do you think there's a really good chance? I mean, so seriously, I think there's a really good chance. And I know I'm the one that predicted this. Let's be honest, 4 years ago, didn't I? I said one day Bill Belichick will coach the Cowboys. I think that's greater than not that happens.
Yeah, it was 4 years ago because it was during the pandemic when Brady left to go to Tampa. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, he grew up a Cowboy fan. He loved Tom Landry. He
Yeah.
was, loved Staubach. He loved that whole thing. He started coaching for the Baltimore Colts in the late 70s. So he
Yep.
got his little foot in the door, and I could definitely see it. I could definitely see it happening. But in order for that to happen, this year has to go the exact opposite of your prediction. Because this is not really all in for the Cowboys. It's get to the title game, or I'm just going to tear it down.
I think it's time for people just to forget the whole all in. It whatever it meant, all that. We got to. I know it's a fun joke to keep going back to. He was talking out his ass in the moment. He was mad. We would all be mad. You and I were literally firing everybody after that loss. The only thing that I enjoyed about that loss was that it was so quick and so ugly that you and I had moved on, and we were already talking all the other matchups we were ready for and all that. So I appreciate that, Green Bay. Thank you. But yeah, we got to forget about the all in. He talked out his ass. Steven said, dude, shut up. Go sit in the corner. And then proceeded to do what Dallas is going to do. They believe, right or wrong, that you're going to pay certain people big money and everybody else you're going to roster churn. And I don't know, dude. I still feel that this team's going to win. I'm serious about my prediction, having fun with that, but I'm serious I still think Dallas makes the playoff. And I don't even think Dallas I don't think they win the division because I'm just going with the whole curse thing. But I don't think Dallas is ever in doubt that they make the playoffs. I think they're 12, 11, 10 wins, and they're easily in.
If you look at their starting lineup, and you have to remember on the defensive side, Mike Zimmer is the new defensive coordinator. This is a playoff team. Yeah. They have the talent. It's there. I guess for a lot of Cowboy fans and a lot of haters of Cowboy fans, they're both in unison of wondering, okay, it's still the Cowboys. They still seem to figure out a way to shoot the bet, they just mess it up.
They're going to find a way. They haven't won a past the second round since 1996. All that.
Just a minor part here. They drafted a Notre Dame linebacker, Maurice Lufau. He might have been a reach, but
that's the biggest issue. That's the biggest pick I have an issue with.
And a lot of people do. I agree it's a reach, but I know he fits a need for Zimmer to have a linebacker that's really good against the run, which he has proved that he was at Notre Dame. Hopefully it works out. He should be a starter or in the mix. He should get about 30 snaps a game, probably with him and Overshown and Kendricks and Clark.
Overshown. So here's the thing, and this is one of the bad things about when you're trading out coaches and stuff, schemes, ideas. Is Overshown, does he even fit what Zimmer wants? I think he does, but we don't know 100%.
I think he's one of those guys that kind of fits any scheme. To be honest.
By the way, if Zimmer's here for a couple years, they're drafting a safety next year because that's one of the things Zimmer always wants is a great safety to run the middle of his defense.
Do you think Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, either one of those are potential Zimmer guys?
I think Bell is. I think Bell is your Darren Woodson.
Marquise Bell. So he was playing linebacker last season just because and more so out of need, but also because Dan Quinn just liked him.
Quinn got arrogant. He Bell had a couple great games because teams weren't expecting his quickness, Yeah. And I think Bell's a really special athlete. Again, I think he's the Darren Woodson of Mike Zimmer's defense. He wants that strong safety that'll drop down into to the linebacker in the nickel. Zimmer still does all that. That's what they did in the 90s, and he still does all that because it still works. I mean, if you have the guys and you call the right plays at the right time, Zimmer's scheme is timeless. It'll never go away. And so you can look at the 90s Cowboys at their best and you can assign guys. And so the thing that Dallas, I think, is missing right now is a true Brock Marions type of free safety, a ball hawk, type that's still physical. I think that they're still missing some inside depth. I think, other than that, though, I mean, I think this team, again, is going to win games next year. I think the schedule's harder. I think they've been fortunate a couple years, and that usually kind of bounces back against you. But I still think at worst, they're 10-7.
Yeah. I could definitely see them getting double-digit wins, and I don't see them winning the division. I see the Eagles possibly or Washington winning. I'm not sure.
Washington? I like that.
Yeah,
it would be the most NFC East thing to happen. And by the way, the only reason I'm not saying Dallas doesn't win is I'm just trusting the fact that something's going to happen. Because let's remember, last year for 14 weeks of the season, Philadelphia was easily about to break that curse. And then everything, it's not only that they struggled, but every game that they needed Dallas to find a way to lose, Dallas wasn't finding a way to lose. And then boom, Dallas wins the division. So I really do feel that Dallas could easily win the division this year, but I don't think they will. Again, curse.
I'm gonna just go on a limb and say it could be Washington. I might as well just go ahead and say someone out of the other two teams, Dallas and Philly, just because
it's about time.
About time. New owner, new GM Adam Peters. He came up from San Francisco, and you know how that organization's been doing the last 7 years. New head coach Dan Quinn.
Well, is that a positive or a negative?
It's something. And offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury.
Is that a positive or a negative?
It's something.
I mean, look,
I think he's a better coordinator than he's a head coach. So I think if he can just focus on offense only.
Yeah, but isn't he now coaching under a guy who's a better coordinator than they are a head coach in Dan Quinn?
I mean, I have my issues with Dan Quinn in certain games, but overall, Dan Quinn, stat-wise, Cowboys were top 5 on defense.
Yes,
but
we know how that.
I don't care about that.
By the way, this is the most. Something tells me you're right about this now because you just start looking at everything, a redemptive arc for the team. The first time they can finally kind of heal after the name change, the Dan Snyder, the 30 years of just being a laughing stock. We make fun of Dallas, but at least Dallas has consistently made the playoffs, and Washington was consistently a top 5 draft because they were so terrible. Then a redemptive arc for the coach. Yeah. And then the quarterback. I mean, all of it. It does play into the NFL's hands.
I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to win the division. And
I'm with you now.
Dan Quinn brought some of the right guys from Dallas to go over there. Starts at center with Tyler Biadasz. I think he'll be a solid center for the Washington Commanders. They already had Andrew Wiley from last year. He was the former chief of right tackle who kind of took care of Hassan Reddick. Yep. Javon Hargrave in the Super Bowl. Sam Cosmi, he's a really good right guard. The guy they drafted this year, Brandon Coleman, they drafted him in the 3rd round from TCU. He is going to be legit. He'll get some Pro Bowl recognition, I think, this year. I think he'll be the starting left tackle.
I'm calling it now. I'm calling the next 2 years now. You're right. They're going to win the division. Dallas will finish 2nd. Philadelphia will finish 3rd.
And they'll all make the playoffs.
And yeah, probably. But so we'll get all the things of, Dallas might not even make the playoffs because we'll get all things about, Washington, Dan Quinn was the reason why, blah, blah, blah. And then the next year is when everything actually takes hold. And then Quinn and the Commanders, they go 5-12. Because, there's always that one guy that gets hired and they have the bounce back year and then they go right back to being crappy, whether it be because of injuries or a lot of times it's just catching the schedule right. Again, it's not just about the best team. It's matchups, it's luck, it's history, it's all that. That's why I know everybody else hates the cap. That's why I love the cap. That's why I love where football is, because you can make a case for Dallas finishing 5-12 or 12-5, and both of them are valid points.
Very much so. Just to recap on the Commanders, they got their starting ends and Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong, also from the Cowboys. They got Bobby Wagner in free agency from the Seattle Seahawks. And then if you go to the draft, they drafted Jaden Daniels That was the big pick in the number 2 pick.
Yep.
And then one of my favorite defensive tackles to come out of the draft was Zerhan Newton from Illinois, and they picked him up in the 2nd round. I think that was great value, only because he was a guy that was supposed to be a first. A lot of these defensive players are picked in the 2nd round. They should have been picked in the 1st round, but
it was a weird year.
It was a weird year because the NFL owners, teams, they decided, okay, defense was dominating last year. Let's fight that with more offense just to
Good
see.
point. I never thought of it like that.
And that was so like you had your Cowboy point. That was kind of my take, my like the thing that stood out to me in this draft was teams were going to fight offense or defense, a good defense with more offense, just get as many skill position players on that side of the ball. So a lot of really good defensive players like Cooper DeJean that went to the Eagles, which was a steal for them. A lot of those guys were in the 2nd round, so 2nd day picks, and he was one of them. They got the Michigan cornerback Mike Sandstro, and then Ben Stenot, the tight end from Kansas State. They already have Zach Ertz. They got him in free agency. I think he'll be the tight end for the future. And then Brandon Coleman, like I told you, and then Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey.
Luke McCaffrey played at Rice.
Yeah, and like all these picks, like I'm telling you all these picks, and they're all good picks, and they're all at good positions. Yeah, within the draft. So I think they are going to surprise a lot of teams. Maybe they probably won't win the division, but I'm gonna go ahead and just say I think Washington wins the division this year. That'll be my surprise pick.
All right, hang on. So Kevin McPherson, he said, "What is up with the Vikings picking another A&M Commerce player?" Who's the one that they picked before this one? I can't think of that. But I wanted to go back real quick. We're going to look back in 15 years at this Illinois football team in college with the defensive guys, where there might be a couple of near Hall of Fame to Hall of Fame players going in and go, "How did that Illinois team go like at best 8-4?"
Yeah. Yeah. Last year they had all those.
Secondary guys.
I don't know, man. It could have just been. Oh, who's the head coach there?
Well, it was Lovie Smith.
It was Lovie. No, it's
but I mean, Lovie a lot of that. The guys that were going into the draft last year, that was Lovie's last recruited class.
Brett Bielema.
Yeah,
that's who it is. Yeah,
but he's only been there. This is only his 2nd year.
Yeah.
Because he was at Arkansas. He went to Wisconsin and Arkansas.
Yeah. Was he the coach in 22, though? Let me see. He was the coach. So,
first year, I think.
He's been the coach at Illinois since 21. So, yeah, he was the head coach. Okay. So, I mean, he can definitely recruit good secondary players and defensive players. But I guess maybe just the offense is the issue. But, I mean, they're still teams that can, they're able to contend in the Big Ten, and which right now is a good thing. Michigan just won the championship. The Big Ten is as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, but it's going to change now with USC and all them, man. Illinois and the Indianas, they're not going to have a chance. Eventually, I've said this. The way this is going to play out is the SEC and the Big Ten, whatever they're going to call themselves, are going to split away. And they're going to form a college league that's just like the NFL. Like the Big Ten will be the AFC and the SEC will be the NFC. And they'll play with inside each other how they want, and then maybe some cross games. Probably not, because in college there's going to be more, there's just going to be more. In the pros, it's 16-16. Well, in college, it'll probably end up being 24-24, and which would make it more unique because you're only seeing the SEC play out and the Big Ten play out, and the only time they play would be in the national championship game. So that'd be kind of cool. But that's where it's going.
I mean, you make a good point, because think about the playoffs. They're expanding to, I think, 8 teams or 12 teams this year.
And I'm all for it.
And so it should just be the Power 5 conference champions and then a bunch of wild cards. That should minimize the controversy significantly, because even now in the 4-team playoff, that fifth team is very strong. And you can make a case that fifth team could win the championship.
And 9 times out of 10, the fifth team or the sixth team is one of the hard charging team that's won, like, started out the year 1-2 and then have won 9 in a row and beat some really good teams. And so you start to go, hey man, that's, how good could they be if they got up into the 4th spot? But I will say this, I'm 100% for everything college football is doing, but I can admit that it'll feel different when, and I say when, and I'm not even saying like soon, but I'm just saying when Texas wins it in this format, it'll feel different. I'm saying that if you're a USC fan and your team wins it, whenever your team wins it next in this format, and if you've won it before in the old format, it'll feel different. It'll feel a little bit like, okay, that was awesome, but man, I missed the time back in the day where even 04, Texas had to do this and do this and do this to make sure they were, and you had weeks of talking about this, like, will Texas beat Colorado? All that kind of fun stuff. I will miss that, but I like what they're doing, but I will miss that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I used to like about the old way college football, but
I thought you were going to go somewhere really dark.
The 69 Longhorns didn't do that. But the post 69 season. So from that point on, I used to like that era. There's a lot of subjectivity. But now it's more. There's more math, and as a CPA, I guess I should like that.
It's a little robotic, though, isn't it?
It's a little robotic. They really are probably going to reduce the number of regular season games.
Which they should anyway. Go back to 10. 10 was perfect.
I think they should do 10, just like in high school.
And then 6 playoff games, 16 games. And hey, college guys, you are getting paid now. So if you want to make that, the same thing I say with NFL guys. I want the game to be as safe as it can be, but there is a point where it's like, hey guys, the risk. If you want the glory, the money, and all that, you make that decision. And so for college, you can justify the 14, 15, and 16 games if you're playing 10 regular season and then 6 playoff games.
Yeah. And
that's very uniform, too.
It's very uniform, and I think that will end up helping teams pick, or we'll definitely get whoever wins the championship. I don't think there will be an asterisk.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I think it'll be legit. Like, okay, they both play on the field. Because a lot of situations, like think of 84 BYU. I think they won the Holiday Bowl. And then
against SMU with a big comeback.
And they were declared champions.
Yeah, it was a weird year.
So, or 1990 with Georgia Tech and Colorado sharing the championship. I don't want to share a championship.
Yeah.
There can only be one. I just think it should be one. That'll be the positive of this, that in college football, it'll just be like the lower divisions in college football, but in the FCS, you're just going to actually play what everybody will consider the top 10 or 12 or however many more teams you want to add in the playoffs.
And that's going to be what I think you make everybody happy. Now, if you want to also have it to where you relegate, that's fine. That'd be fun. Have the CFL College Football League, which is the Big 12 or a Southeast Conference and the Big 10 together, and they play it like the NFL. And then the next division, which is Division 1, they have bowl games, and they rank and they have a champion, but it's old school. Do everything like you used to. You get to pick, this. I think UNT's better on paper. Blah blah blah, and then everybody has what they want in college football. I think that'd be a great way to do it. And then, like I say, if you want to throw relegation in, sure, why not? Let's try it.
Where would you relegate these teams to from the FCS?
Just the 2. You don't have to go. You don't have to go relegation all the way down. Just between the what would be the new, the pro-like league, Big 10, SEC. Their last place team would go down, and their first place, and maybe make it, instead of a true relegation, make it to where they play each other in a bowl game. And then winner stays up, loser goes down. And you're not having to do a big change. That's the thing. People go, well, why can't you do that like in pro sports? Well, because there's a real big difference. Let's say if you're a baseball team in El Paso and all of a sudden you go to the pros, you're going to get your ass destroyed in the pros because you can't, it's just different. You can't do that. But in college football, you could do that and get away with it. It wouldn't be that big of a difference. In fact, that would be the point. A lot of the top teams at the second level could probably beat a lot of the, middle to top teams at the very top from year to year. Look at us solving sports issues.
And I think that should be a short. Your theory about relegation and promotions, I really like that.
I do too. Up next, Noah's going to talk Israel right here.
I was going to say about McPherson's question about A&M Commerce guy, Levi Drake Rodriguez. He was a 7th round pick from Minnesota. Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator from Minnesota. Yep. I thought he did a great job in year one.
You're a big fan of his.
I'm a big fan of his. I didn't like how he left Miami. But
I'm troubled with how he treated Tua. Like that just was weird.
That was the big factor. That was what basically
he basically bullied him, and I don't know, maybe he was getting that from. I don't even know where he would get that from because it's not like Belichick bullied Brady at the point that Brian Flores was a defensive coordinator. Now, if he'd have been there in 2002, okay, maybe, but like by the time he was in the Patriot fold as a coach, I mean, they were, it was Brady. So I don't know why he acted like that.
For people listening, Bill Belichick or Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for Minnesota, was a former Miami Dolphins head coach who used to be a former assistant for the New England Patriots under Bill Belichick.
And if you're listening or watching us, you better already know that, you asswipes.
Wow. Thanks.
I'm just saying.
And our viewers went to 50. It was over 3,000. Now it's 50.
You know what? I'll take those 50. And I'm sorry.
So I think he actually might make the roster because if you look at their draft from this year, they draft quarterback McCarthy. They drafted edge and Dallas Turner. And in the 6th round, they drafted a kicker, Will Reichard. He was the kicker for Alabama. I think he set a record for most points in a college career. They got Walter Rouse, offensive tackle. So they addressed a lot of offensive needs. Oh, they got Kyrie Jackson, who's a huge cornerback from Oregon. I think
I like him.
And I think Flores probably desired him from the jump. I think he'll be a good fit for the Vikings.
And by the way, whether we agree or not, and I think it's up for debate, but Minnesota not having to move to get JJ makes that pick right. Either way, you got who you wanted without giving up any capital, and you got a really good guy with another pick. So even if JJ doesn't work out, I think you still count that as a win. I don't have a problem if a player doesn't work out if that you get him in the right value spot. It's when you trade 2 for Roy Williams or trade 2 first for Joey Galloway. You could that player was never going to get that value because 2 first rounds is it's invaluable.
It really is.
I mean, it's what we talked about with CeeDee Lamb. I love CeeDee Lamb. I love Dallas having a wide receiver that's at the top of the league because oddly enough, even though Dallas has some really great wide receivers, you've never seen one that, was at the top of everything quite like Lamb is. But I've also said too, so how many catches gets you 12 wins? And then after that, how many more of those catches are just stats for stats? And so if it's better value, you always trade the one guy for multiple starters unless it's quarterback. We're still a quarterback league, so I don't think we'll ever do that with quarterbacks.
I remember you wanted to talk about the Colts drafting Adonai Mitchell. Is there something you want to say about it, or?
Well, it came out, and I told you this before the draft. He blew my mind at Texas. The things he did and where Texas' offense struggled and then kind of found itself late because there was a point where that Texas offense was struggling with quarterback issues. Ewers was hurt and all that, and that's when he shined. And I kept telling you, dude, I don't want Dallas drafting a wide receiver in the 1st round, but if they drafted him, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah.
And so he kept falling, and then he kept falling, and then the Colts grabbed him. And I think, first off, great move by the Colts. Colts is another one of those teams. I'm telling y'all, the cap and everything's working out. There's probably 18 teams that you can make a case of making a surprise run. I'm serious. Think about it in your head, 18 teams. But anyway, the GM of the Colts comes out and basically says, look, we were hearing all this crap about this kid, and everything that we researched said it wasn't, we think he's good. And darn you people. And they were wagging that stick. And then you and I both immediately were like, yeah, they probably created that themselves, didn't they?
That's what exactly what we were
both
thinking.
thought immediately.
Because it reminded me of like Lyle Collins. Now, this is more of a serious situation.
But that has been rumored.
He was a top 10, top 15 pick at guard. He ended up not being drafted, and the Cowboys just picked him up in UFA.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
UFA with a big deal, like immediately, like 5 minutes after the draft. And there's always been that rumor. And again, it's just rumor, but that supposedly there might have been a chance that maybe Jerry Jones called some favors. And I'm thinking, like, what would Jerry Jones have favors in Baton Rouge? And then I'm like, well, no, actually, it wouldn't surprise me if Jerry Jones had favors in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Because of his oil and gas business.
Well, yeah, that's it. Not his syphilis business, but
anyway, going back to the Colts, though, I think they had a pretty solid draft too. I think
But hang on. The point is, though, do you think that the Colts started those rumors? I don't really think they did, but it does feel like he was, oh, darn you, like defending you, like, okay, dude, like he's trying to prove to Adani that, hey, look, it wasn't us. See, I'm going to go shame on all y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of think that's how I legitimately kind of think that's how it went.
I mean, for drama purposes, yeah, I kind of want to see that actually be the case. But what would the punishment be? Tampering? It's just hearsay. Like,
well, I mean, I get. Oh, that's a good point. I think if it came out that they knowingly, like there was proof that a team said, like it's almost like the collusion thing. Yeah. If they could find proof that like Jerry Jones emailed Steven and said, hey, we want this quarterback, so I'm going to call in favors with this newspaper and start something. Yeah, I think they could get them for something. If they couldn't prove that.
I'm saying, like, if it's illegal for the NFL, then yeah. But if it's not illegal, so like, remember,
I think it would be, is my point.
Remember that hockey player, Sean Avery, he was former star, but
for like a half a minute.
Yeah, hot second. But when he was with the Rangers, there was a playoff game where he was just like all in Martin Berdeur's business when they played the Devils in the playoffs. The next day, they created a rule where they can't do that anymore. Yeah. Because he was just like antagonizing Brodeur, had the stick all over, like he was all over the place. And it was legal. So they didn't punish him, but they enacted a rule 24 hours later during a season where that would not happen again.
Yep.
So I wonder if that would happen, and where it was something that happened as legal. So as going back to my CPA days, tax. People find ways to get out of certain tax situations. And the very next year, the IRS prints out a new law to try to combat it. And so that gets negated. And then so like that's what it kind of reminds me of. If it's legal and you can get away with it, go for it. But then the NFL might crack down on it the next season. They can't really punish you for something that's not illegal.
Well,
they can try. They can try to. Okay, go ahead.
They did to Dallas and Washington with the whole cap thing. So for everybody,
2011?
Everybody that wants to complain about Dallas in like 2011, 2012, and 2013, and I was right there with them because that was the height of the 8-8 and all. But let's remember, they got hit with kind of a BS cap penalty because the way the whole the bargaining went, there was an uncapped year. And nobody ever thought it would actually get there. That was kind of supposed to be just a rollover year. Well, the players called the owner's bluff and said, no, we're good. We're going to play in this uncapped year. And the NFL sent out a letter saying, hey, y'all can't go over the cap, which is illegal. Like that, you can't do that. And the Cowboys in Washington went over the cap to sign guys. That what they basically did is they signed a guy. I can't remember who it was for Dallas now. I mean, it was somebody good, but like signed him to a 4-year deal for $10 million with $9.9 million being in that first year because it was an uncapped year.
Yeah.
And so the NFL can make up whatever damn rule. Same thing with Zeke Elliott. Like Zeke Elliott, like, we all remember, everybody remembers 2015 or 2016 and then 2019, but you forget 26 or 17 when they were really, really good. And he gets suspended for even the lead investigative woman says, I don't think you should suspend him. I don't think, there's no proof he did anything wrong. And I'm not defending him because he's a Cowboy. I'm defending the fact that the lead investigator said that the NFL said, that's fine. We're going to suspend him for 6 games.
What a lost season. Because they went
It really was.
They went 3-3. The Eagles they had the number 1 seed with Nick Foles. They barely beat Atlanta in the divisional round. And
That's the game they lost to Seattle, and that's what set the deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was late season. It was Zeke's first game back.
Yeah, and it was a really good game, and it was back and forth. And I think Dak I didn't actually see that game because I was going home, and that was back when I was on the train all the time, and so I didn't have the internet to watch it. So, and I think I was also just frustrated because you and I were hanging out the night of the infamous Atlanta game.
Yeah, Tyron Smith was hurt. And Dak Prescott just got eviscerated that whole game. I think they got to Dak about 6 or 7 times in that game.
I one dude had like 5 sacks. I legitimately think that game set Dak back a couple years.
That makes perfect sense. Atlanta used that momentum, and then they went to the Super Bowl the prior year. And they were struggling in 2017, but they used that victory to propel them into the playoffs, and they beat the Rams in the wild card round. But yeah, and they really should have beat the Eagles. They just couldn't convert on 4th and goal when they were in scoring territory. I think they lost 15-10. It was a really ugly game.
It was very ugly.
But yeah, that was a turning point for the Cowboys. I think without Zeke, they were 0-3 to start, and then they won their final 3 games with Alfred Morris at running back.
Yep.
He kind of had a
really
he had
a bounce back.
Yeah, he had a bounce back. But yeah, once Zeke got back, I mean, he still was kind of rusty, and Seattle took advantage of that, and they won. And that was basically the reason why the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. They finished 9-7. It was a lost season. That team should have. Again, like 2016, the 2017 Cowboys should have made it to the Super Bowl.
Should have built off, or at least built off that and been finally to the NFC title game.
Would have, could have.
Yeah. Again, that's where I feel like that's the era we're in now with Dallas, and have been since 2007. Because we have fun talking about it, and this is why I appreciate you. And I say all the time, I think we're in a weird era now where people don't appreciate the teams that don't win Super Bowls and don't win championships and World Series rings and all that. Yeah. You look at some of the Cowboys, the 07 team, the 2014 team, the 2016 team, 2015 team. We don't know because it felt like they were building off 2014, and then Romo gets hurt, and so it throws that into just another. Again, the only time Dallas has failed outside of like 1 year, it's usually been because their quarterback gets hurt.
Yeah, 2015 with Romo, and then 2020 with that, and 2010 with Romo. Yeah.
And then, like I say, the only 2017, but again, that's the
Zeke 6.
That's the Zeke. 2018 is really the only time that they, where it wasn't like you felt something injury wise is why.
Yeah.
And like it or not, this is still the most prolific era of Dallas. The last 3 years, even the last to 2019. This is the most prolific era we've had since the Super Bowls of the 90s. It sucks, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just a lot of they're just good enough to get to the playoffs, but that's the ceiling. And it kind of I would rather just be at the bottom than be here. It just feels like you're in. I hate to use a biblical term, but it feels like it feels like you're in purgatory right now.
Yeah, but you're not guaranteed to come back up just because you go down really low. Because sometimes if you get too far down, you never come back up.
I have no idea what you're trying to say here, but okay.
Was it cutting out?
No. I hear what you were saying, but I thought you were using euphemisms.
No, I'm saying like
Okay.
you can. Yeah, I agree with you. You tear it down, and you're guaranteed to be 91 Dallas, and then 92 you're playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The problem is that's there's a reason why you're afraid to go down, because sometimes you can't. Look at the Lions.
Yeah.
Look at the Saints until they finally broke through. Hell, the Houston Oilers never got there, and look how many times they stupidly tore down probably 2 years early. Trading Earl Campbell and that bunch, and after the '82 season, benching Warren Moon for Cody Carlson, because they were always, and that goes back to the Atlanta thing. You've never won Atlanta, so what future you're trying to guarantee when you've got to worry about now? You can't. How many futures has Atlanta had that we never saw come together?
I mean, they had that 198 season.
And then the Matt Ryan Super Bowl.
Late 70s, early 80s Falcons were somewhat okay. Bartkowski
kept running into Dallas and other teams in the playoffs, but still fun to watch. Good point.
Yeah, that's really about it. As far as I know about their history, early 90s, it was really just 91. 95, they made the playoffs. 96 and 97,
You had the Mike Vick beating Green Bay on the road. That was pretty epic.
That was historic. The Green Bay had never lost at home in the playoffs until Mike Vick and the Falcons went there in 2002.
Yeah.
And the Falcons had a tie that season. And the very next game, they played the Eagles. Apparently, Donovan McNabb didn't realize that the Falcons had it.
I pray to goodness that OutDrank the Coverage gets big enough that one day we get to be on Super Bowl Row, where that's where the media is, and Donovan's there, and you and him can have it out, because I think that would go viral. I
would love to.
You have so many issues with him not knowing the overtime tie rules.
Hey, he is a pro. He has been in the league for so long. And I have the ultimate respect for his career and what he did. But how do you not know that? You're playing a team that was in a game that ended in a tie.
Yeah. How
do you say that you don't know that games can end in a tie in the regular season? It just – and I know there's some guys that are just talented and they don't love the sport, but they're good at it, so they can just make as much money as they can. I get that. It's just, to me, it just seems like one of those details you just would know going it, but whatever. Maybe I'm just an idiot, which is very plausible. I'm just a fan of the sport.
I love you though, buddy.
Well, thank you. I love you too.
So let me ask you this. Who team? It's that time we've OutDrank the Coverage. What team improved themselves the most for next year, not for the future? And then that can be one and the same, but I'm not talking about who's better 5 years. Who is better next year because of this draft?
Oh, Arizona, Chicago are I'm going to go with Arizona, although Chicago is more apparent because they got Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. I think with Atlanta or Arizona, all those 11 draft picks, I think they hit on almost all of them.
Yeah.
I think they'll make a big jump in 2024, but Chicago is going to be a very apparent jump just because of the offensive talent. And they already had the defensive talent. They
drafted really good.
They're drafted really good. I'm going to go ahead and just go with Arizona for now, just off the top of my head. And I'm just going to go with that. How about you? What do you think?
Chargers. I think the Chargers.
I won't disagree.
I don't think, and I mean, I think they made all the picks you would expect with Harbaugh.
Yeah.
But I think just having Harbaugh's views, philosophies, ideas, I think San Diego / LA, they needed that final cleanse to kind of wash themselves of what used to be.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing we talk about, with the, if you go back to the 2011 Rangers and how my theory is, I've said this many times and I will say it many times on these shows, when you have collapses, and I think Dallas is dangerously close to this, when you have collapses and stuff, at some point you just got to wipe everything clean and start over. And the Chargers have done that and yet still kept their franchise quarterback.
So on our chat, Texas Ranger fans only said the Patriots, which I feel is very interesting. But I I think the last few years, a lot of teams have drafted really well. But with the Patriots, I still think they're a year or two away. I still think they had a lot of parts to add, and I think they're doing well. I think Jalen Polk was picked high,
Yeah.
but I think he's very talented. I think he adds to a receiving core that's kind of just pre-1991 Cowboys, where they were just very slow and very stagnant. Him and Juju Smith, KJ Osborne, I think they'll be good addition, along with Kendrick Bourne.
But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Mayo as a head coach? What do you think? I mean, I don't have any idea. We have no he doesn't have a real head coaching history. And is he going to go the Belichick route and just try to emulate him, or does he try to,
I think he's going to do something different. Right now, what they've done in the offseason was lock up a lot of their key defensive stars, which he's a former linebacker for them. Christian Barmore, I told you earlier, he got a 4-year extension for almost $92 million. He had
by that.
They run a 3-4, so he could play tackle, but in this system he plays end. I guess he just had a really good year last season, and they were really happy. Judon will come back healthy. They gave him a big contract, and they give their strong safety Kyle Duggar a big contract.
Good player.
He is a really good player. He's a little bit older, like 28, but he hadn't been in the league that long. I think defensive-wise, the Patriots are going to be good, but I still think they're a year or two away from realizing their full potential on the offensive side. I still think they have parts, but they don't have everything. I still think their offensive line is not going to be that good, but they have made improvements. But I would say Arizona is far and above made the most dramatic draft moves to where they'll be going from a 3 or 4 win team to about a 7 or 8 win team.
The AFC East might be the division with the most true turnover. Like when you look at what Miami's probably the most set, but they also have the biggest questions. They're kind of getting that Dallas of the AFC. Yep. They look great against bad teams, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You look at, of course, the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers is 100% healthy, they're almost immediately, because they still have a really good roster, they're almost immediately a AFC, champion contender. Then you have Buffalo going through all this change with their offense and not really, they're kind of like Dallas with the running game. They've made a couple moves, but you still feel like they don't have a really good wide receiver. I mean, everybody, and of course we're talking about the Patriots, everybody in the East I can see winning the division, and I can also see just absolutely tanking outside of Buffalo. I still feel like Buffalo is still. I still think Allen is good enough to get them 10 wins.
Yeah, and last season they committed to the running game toward the end of the season. That's what kind of helped catapult their winning streak. They were 6-6, I believe, and then they just really started committing. They let what's Dalvin Cook's brother's name?
Jacob Cook?
No.
No, I'm serious.
No, they.
Why are you laughing at me, bro?
Jacob Cook, like Josh Jacobs. No, they're James Cook. Like
okay. I wasn't that far off, asshole.
But I thought you were talking about Josh Jacobs.
No, I seriously thought I could. Yeah, okay, yeah. I had him in fantasy. He helped. Remember, I made my late season. I didn't make the playoffs, but I won like 9 in a row. But I had started off so bad. He was one of those guys I picked up like in week 3 and actually almost brought me. That's why I remember. I just can't remember his name.
I think they have the best quarterback in the division. No offense to Aaron Rodgers, but
Tua.
No offense to Tua.
What
either.
are your thoughts on Tua? Go ahead and finish that, and then go back to. Sorry, go ahead and finish what you're saying about Buffalo.
I like they got Keon Coleman. He's a big receiver for Florida State. He made a lot of highlight reel catches for them.
I think he could be a foundation wide receiver easily in this league.
Yeah, he's different. He's definitely different from Stephon Diggs, but I think it's not a bad thing. I think him and Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakur are gonna be a good trio at receiver for Josh Allen. The
knock on, I don't know if it's a knock, but Stephon Diggs isn't like he's not like Michael Irvin where he goes up and gets the ball. And in that weather, there's going to be those games where you just need a big guy that you can throw. And I think Keon can be that way. And I think that's where in Buffalo, Diggs let him down. You're not going to see that in Houston where you don't have to worry about that as much. And so in that offense, he doesn't have to be like you said it best. Like he's in Houston, he can be a number one without having to be number one. Like he's got three other guys that, as long as they don't keep getting shot, that you can have Diggs run secondary routes and stuff. And so I think that part, I think Buffalo might have actually gotten better with all the moves on there, even though I still think they need another wide receiver.
Yeah, I still think they do. For this season, I think they'll be okay. I still think they'll be a playoff team. But this might be, as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think they'll win the division.
The Jets?
I really think the Jets.
I think the Jets might win the Super Bowl if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. And I hate saying that, but I really feel that they could make a run.
And to be honest with you, if you look at their draft, they actually did a very low-key, long-term good draft. They got Olu Fashanu from Penn State. That was the tackle that I told you I really liked.
Yep.
And I thought he would went earlier, but he went number 11 to the Jets. That basically signals that Tyron Smith is going to be a Jet for 1 year. Future Cowboy, Hall of Famer at left tackle. I really think that Fashanu is going to be their starting left tackle in 2025. They drafted the guy I texted you about Friday, Jordan Travis, the quarterback at Florida State, who should have been in Heisman contention.
But
then he broke his leg. And this is a perfect situation. They got Rodgers, they got Tyrod Taylor, and they got that third stringer, Jordan Travis, still just rehabbing and getting healthy. And then he's able to watch a pro like Tyrod Taylor and Aaron Rodgers do what they do day to day. And Rodgers at a point in his career where he has maybe 2 or 3 years left. He'll impart some knowledge to Jordan Travis.
You hope. I mean, unless he does the Brett Favre thing.
But I think it'll be a different situation than with him and Jordan Love. Rodgers this is 4 years later.
Rodgers sees the end of his career no matter what. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think he'll be in a more giving role. For whatever you feel about Aaron Rodgers personally as a man, like I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about him as a pro.
As a quarterback, yeah.
As a quarterback, he's one of the greatest to do it in the modern era.
1,000% agree with you.
And I think at this point he'll impart some knowledge, and I think it'll benefit the Jets in the long run. I think really Jordan Travis, who I wanted with the Cowboys, but I really felt that he would be a guy that's going to be overlooked because of the injury. And he was picked late. He was picked in the 5th round. I thought based off his talent, he should have been picked way earlier, but the injury kind of hampered that. And him going to the Jets, I think, is a really good situation. I think he has some pros there that can really teach him how to be an NFL quarterback. And I really think by 2025, 2026, or by 2027, he'll be ready to ascend to be a franchise quarterback for the Jets.
Well, and something tells me that with the picks they made, they've told their head coach, you're good, dude. Like, we understand last year was really fluky. We're not saying, like, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and y'all still only win 4 games, okay, you're probably gone. But if Aaron Rodgers is healthy and y'all make the playoffs but don't get past the first round, you're not gone. You don't make that. You're not happy as a head coach with that because, like you said, every draft pick they made is for after Aaron Rodgers. And it wouldn't shock me if Tyron Smith ends up back in Dallas like Zeke. Does the 1 year and then comes back, realizes like, hey, I had it pretty good down there. Literally Zeke was like saying that, I had to make my decisions, but hey, when it came down to it, I'm back in Dallas. But still, all right. So other teams in the draft, what stands out of just everybody? Just as we kind of, what time is it? We kind of start to wind down here. We've been at a good 2-hour run almost.
I think the Panthers did a decent job in putting some parts around Bryce Young. They kind of tried last season, but they They try to do a lot of veterans, and that wasn't working really for them.
Well, and to be honest with you, this draft will be a success if he makes this finally looks like an NFL quarterback. I will admit, I don't know. There's no way it can be this wrong because there was just something different about him last year. And I don't know if it was confidence or whatever.
It could have been offensive line. Like they got Robert Hunt in the offseason from Miami, one of the highest paid guards. Then in this draft, they also got rid of Brian Burns, their star edge rusher.
That was a weird one.
But you know what, though? In the draft, they got some offensive talent. They got Jonathan Brooks, your guy from UT, coming off an injury. But I think I think he was the best running back in this draft, and I think he'll be a good fit with the Panthers. They got South Carolina's the current version of Deebo Samuel, Xavier Leggett. He kind of built the same way as the former South Carolina receiver Deebo Samuel,
and not been as hurt as much.
And they also got tight end for the future in Jatavian Sanders from UT.
I'll tell you what, he's a dude that, again, talking about, you were kind of surprised when we talked about wide receivers, and I talked about how I thought Mitchell was Xavier Worthy and all.
Yeah,
that was a group. I don't think, I think Dallas. I think Texas next year will still be in contention for the playoffs and all that. It also expands, that helps. But I think they take a big step back offensively early because I don't think people understand how talented. I mean, when you look at 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a tackle, a running back, all drafted. If the quarterback would have, if he would have declared, he probably gets drafted in the first round with how this draft went. So, anyway, I'm just saying, I just want to make that point about that. Brooks, I think that's the big kind of tying us back to Dallas. I think that's the big mistake Dallas has made. I'm fine with the defensive end, Nealon. I'm fine with the linebacker from Notre Dame, though apparently that one, I'm not going to pretend like I knew who he was, but apparently that one was like, a lot of people were like, you could have got him in the 5th or 6th round. But I think to knock it down, and that's what it goes back to my prediction, where I think Ezekiel Elliott will have a little bit of a bounce back year, 1,000 yards, 1,100 yards, but they're going to get to the NFC title game. They're going to lose because the running game can't do anything. And so next year, Jerry Jones is going to be back to, let's take a running back in the first round.
And they'll be at that point because right now they're going in with no legitimate number 1 running back. They're just going to do a committee running back situation.
And by the way, there's going to be a back or 2 that are cut. I still think you're at least talking to Dalvin Cook. I know he struggled with the Jets, but he can't have. I say he can't. I mean, this is what running backs do. But it still feels like you've got to have another year or 2 in him. And what about the dude that replaced him? Isn't he out on the market too, Madison, or did he sign with somebody?
Alexander Madison went to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I think.
Son of a bitch. You got anything else you want to talk about sports wise? You want to wind this down?
We can wind this down.
No, we keep talking. Whatever. If you have something to talk about, let's talk it, brother.
The Eagles made 8 trades during this draft. That's the most since 1990.
Okay, I want to talk about their picks, especially the first 2.
Okay.
Really their first one. Dude from Tulsa, the cornerback.
Kenyon.
Yeah, everybody's giving them an A because of that pick.
Kenyon Mitchell.
Yeah, Keon Mitchell.
Toledo cornerback, yeah.
He fell to the Eagles, and what savvy moves. Dude, it was I'm telling you, if this was a normal draft, he wouldn't have been a second rounder. He was the top-rated cornerback in a down year for cornerbacks. And there was nothing about him that stood out. I'm not saying he won't be a good player, but I don't think that that's as big of the credit that people think it is.
With the Eagles, I'm actually there are 3 picks I'm happy with. Cooper DeJean, because he's an all-purpose. Now, he was one of the highly...
is that going to be like Jabril Peppers, where you could never kind of find a good spot for him?
Well, he was great in special teams. That's how I knew about him in college at Iowa. Now, outside of Caitlin
So
Clark, the
Jabril
other
Peppers was too. I'm literally comparing because that's what he remember at Michigan. He was the dude that he did everything. He was the the next Desmond, but he was also good on defense.
Jabril Peppers was a really good player, and he was only picked in the second round. I thought he was going to pick way higher than that just because of what I remember him being in college. Cooper DeJean, he was an All-American kick returner, like a special teams guy, but he was also an excellent cornerback.
Tim Dwight with coverage skills.
Tim Dwight with coverage skills, yes, because he's of Aryan persuasion.
No, because they both went to Iowa.
Oh, that's the reason why you're comparing him to
wow,
Tim Dwight.
dude.
Okay.
Wow. I see your true colors.
And it's white. Cooper, but I like Cooper DeJean's versatility. I think the Philadelphia
I do
Eagles,
too, actually.
they have what you consider old secondary players, but they're like in their early 30s. James Bradbury, Darius Slay. He'll be able to replace one of the two, but he can also project to be a safety if they want to move on from CJ Gardner-Johnson, who they just signed back this season after he trashed the city of Philadelphia.
I love that dude because, in today's world where people say like, oh, guys aren't about the team anymore. That dude is. If he put a Cowboy jersey on today, he would trash talk the Eagles and the Lions like it was nobody's business.
He'd be like, Cowboy Nation, let's ride.
Yes, let's ride with a Subway.
But it's spicy.
I'm not saying, and I'm not saying that those two guys aren't going to be good for the Eagles. I'm just saying everybody talking about, oh, they've got the steal of the draft. No, they got two solid secondary guys in a year where I don't know. And I'm not going to say Cooper DeJean is getting it simply because he's white, but it kind of does feel like that. I mean, it really does.
I think they have a safety that's white.
Who, the Eagles?
Yeah.
I think that don't Philadelphia, don't they have to have like a certain white ratio to make sure because they're pretty racist up there. I'm just saying.
Oh, I said that. Okay.
You know what sucks? One of my favorite sports movies is what's his name? Mark Wahlberg's Invincible.
Oh yeah.
Replace Vince Papale.
Yeah. Reed Blankenship, free safety. That he's of a certain persuasion. Yes.
Oh, for the Eagles?
Yeah. He starts for them.
So what were your thoughts on the trades? It kind of felt like to me that some of them were good and none of them were terrible, but it kind of felt like one of those situations where the GM feels like they need to show their owner that they're doing their job.
Well, I mean, let's face it. They replaced both coordinators.
Yeah.
Because they started 10-1. Yeah.
Again, back to back. That's got to be.
But this is for a bad reason. Yeah, this must be a record. But
it has to be.
In 2022, they replaced them for a good reason because they went to the Super Bowl and they were so good that one went to the Colts and one went to for some reason the Colts decided to go with another Philadelphia offensive coordinator.
That's right,
Frank Reich. And then the other one went to the Arizona Cardinals. And then this past season, both coordinators just got fired because they performed poorly. The Eagles started 10-1 last season. They finished 11-6. Lost. They got blown out.
They collapsed.
Yeah, they just collapsed. They lost in the wild card round to the Buccaneers, and then they proceeded to hire Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator, and they hired Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. I think it's more desperation because it seems like we all joke about Cowboys being all in.
Yeah,
I really think it's Philadelphia that's all in for this season because all the trades they made, all the moves they made, and they lost Jason Kelsey, who'll be in the Hall of Fame in 5 years. They lost Fletcher Cox, who'll probably be in the Hall of Fame, maybe not 5 years, maybe 6, 7 years.
He gets in eventually, though.
Yeah, he was a guy that I really wanted with the Cowboys. There was such a lack of elite defensive tackles around that time, and he was one of them. You can make the case. When's the last elite defensive tackle Dallas has had, dude? Leroy Glover? Yeah, we got him from the Saints. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, you've got DeMarcus Lawrence, and before him, maybe Leon Lett, the big cat. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Tony Casilla, that whole group. That again, that goes back to what Jimmy Johnson knew how to build a line.
Yeah.
Where you know, but yeah, I mean, since then, that's when you think of Dallas defensively, you think of the 3-4, maybe Marcus Spear, and again, we're talking defensive tackle, so not DeMarcus Ware, defensive end. Yeah, I think Leroy Glover, but Dallas has done it with great linebacker or in play, DeMarcus Ware, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons. Yeah, it'd be nice, if we would buy into some more of the traditional stuff. I have no problem changing things up. You need to try different things, but you have to know. And again, it goes back to, do you tear down too early or do you tear down too late? Does it really matter? You've got to find that perfect balance where you're always changing something philosophical, in my opinion.
Outside of the Cardinals, I actually do like what the Steelers did in this draft.
I do too. Drafted a lot of fat guys that'll block.
Because Arthur Smith is their offensive coordinator, and he's a very run-heavy offensive mind, and they got 2 quarterbacks that can do that. I think Russell Wilson fits this offense more than he did in Sean Payton's offense in Denver.
I don't think he lasts the year, but I don't think it's because of anything of him. I still think Russell Williams has some football left in him. I just think that Justin Fields will end up starting for the Steelers.
They just got the same guy, but 10 years old. Yeah, like one's 10 years older than the other.
We can make the case that, and I said it jokingly, I think, during the draft, I mean, you can make the case that Dallas could be looking at either or after this year if things don't go right. And then Dallas is like, okay, we're not going to pay Dak. I think either one of them I would have no problem with being on the Cowboys. Again, depending on how the rest of the team's built. And again, I'm not wanting to get rid of Dak. I'll whether you want to say I'm having facts, or I'm just buying in because I'm a fan, but I think Dak can win the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. I don't think the reason why the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl during the Dak era is because of him. For 100%, I don't think it's because of him. He's had bad games just like every other quarterback's had. I mean, think about the regular season game on Christmas Day against the Raiders for Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Raiders beat them, and it was because of Patrick Mahomes. He threw a couple. Well, I think there was at least one pick six, but there was 2 Raider defensive touchdowns.
It was like within 3 plays, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so they lost because of him in that offense. I'm not going to blame Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to say they won't ever win another Super Bowl because of him. You can bounce back from losses and win. Like I don't say. I was the same thing way with Tony Romo. They would blame Tony Romo for the Cowboys' futilities back in the day. But no, he's the reason why we're even in this conversation in the first place. So.
Yep. No, 100% agree with you, dude.
But if the Cowboys don't make it to the conference championship game or the Super Bowl, just tear it down and start over because it's just not working.
Yeah,
Jerry
no
Jones,
matter whether you think they're the right guys or not, it's time.
Yeah.
This isn't like it used to be where you could wait 6, 8, 9 years because that's kind of how contracts work. But let's go back to that honorable mention show and we talk about a team like the Cardinals. What if the Cardinals, free agents wise, could have made some key changes at key moments back in the 70s?
Yeah.
Then you might be talking about a completely different path for the NFL. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying a different path. Back then, you basically, there's a reason why the Cardinals were almost always, because they could never build the depth because they had to hit perfect on every draft because you couldn't just go to the free agency side. And I like what Dallas is doing. I prefer what Dallas is doing. I don't want a team that's just always you're churning guys because you're chasing the biggest free agents and then you're having to tear down for 4 years and then you're doing it again and you're just in that circle. I'd rather do it like they're doing now where they keep building because I do think at the end of the day, you eventually hit on something 2 out of those 3 years if you build the right roster through drafting and stuff.
100% agree, man.
All right. I think we're done, brother.
Good show. 2
Great
hours.
show.
There's a lot of stuff we could talk about. I mean, there's just but the NFL draft is the NFL draft. It's a 3-day event. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of ramifications from the draft. There's undrafted rookie free agents that are
Yep, good
available.
point. Hey,
And-
by the way, I have enjoyed the back-to-back year. That is definitely, we are doing a draft show every year for the first round, as long as they keep it in this format. That is so fun. It keeps me, I didn't realize till tonight, I literally have no notes up, but I've been able to talk about movements and stuff because I was watching that draft for 4 hours and doing all the research before and stuff. And so I really have enjoyed watching the draft last couple of years like this.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, you and I watched the first round. You and I, we did a live show, and then we watched the next 2 days, and it's kind of captivating. It's kind of like a snapshot in where this, like you take a picture and you can get a glimpse into what a team is at currently and what their plans to do going forward. And it's just kind of cool to see like the strategy involved. They have to factor the cap, salaries, and all that. I'm just looking forward to 2024. I'm not sure. I don't have high expectations for the Cowboys, but I'm just looking forward to another very competitive and fun season. And I got to find another app or whatever to use to watch all my games. So I'll be looking forward to that. I used Sling last season. I think
Telling you, dude, NFL, if they
use
do what
the
they
NFL.
offer,
Yeah.
it was perfect. You can watch everything on the TV, and I paid $15 a month. Now, if you like watching cable television, and I did miss it because I cut the cord in 2015, but like 2017, 18, 19, and 20, I did the YouTube TV or the Fubo so I could watch, the Red Zone, and I would eventually kind of watch some cable stuff. So I did miss that last year, but other than that, dude, the $15 a month, I've even kept it through the off season because you can watch all the old NFL film stuff.
Yeah.
And that's been fun too. So I'm telling you, do that.
Will do.
All right, brother. You can, I forgot to do the thing. Hang on. Let me do this real quick. Do this one right here. Sorry. I forgot. Where did it go? There we go.
Manscaped.
We haven't got the equipment on our side, so we can't really do an ad for them. I respect that about them. They want you to try the equipment before you do it, but we can't tell you to use our code ODTC. Just go to manscaped.com. Until next time, his intern Noe the Pro. I'm Terry, and this has been OutDrank the Coverage.